Blessings, namaste, and love, everyone. I'm spiritualist, psychic, astrologer, and medium Ray Sette. As always, thank you for offering me this opportunity to share with you my astrological and spiritual insights. And in this segment, we are looking and discussing what is occurring for the month of February 2025. Even though it's just over a month away, we are approaching our next eclipse season in March. And every once in a while I like to just kind of highlight and just kind of emphasize the importance of what or how we can best prepare for the eclipse season. First and foremost, always allow yourself to recognize what you feel is shifting for you. Eclipses generally occur twice a year. The solar and lunar come in pairs. And whenever, about 3 months before the eclipse event, especially the solar eclipse, it's an auspicious opportunity to energetically prepare ourselves. One, what will begin around the time of the solar eclipse because it's intensified, concentrated new moon, and what will culminate that it has been gathering momentum for long periods of time at the lunar eclipse. So just allow yourself to recognize and honor what your feeling is shifting. Also, too, if you have any ideas or plans of what you would like to begin at the solar eclipse, because remember, whatever we commence at the solar eclipse, especially we begin the process by setting the intentions. That energy will stay with us for a longer period of time. Generally, with a new moon, it's a 30-day cycle. With an eclipse, a solar eclipse, it begins a longer cycle of experience. This is why we are offered a greater amount of time to prepare for it. Generally, about 3 months, sometimes even 6 months, sometimes a year, and sometimes even longer. And as with all things astrologically, it's all dependent upon where the eclipse event, any lunation, or any planetary cycle is fitting into our astrological charts, as well as how exacting the points are to the places in our astrological chart. The more exacting are the placements, that's when we can really feel the energies that are shifting, and we can recognize how it's applying for us on a personal level. Remember, not everyone is going to experience everything on the same way, or to the intensity or to the level that someone will experience a particular astrological phenomena. It's all dependent upon the alignments and how specific they are to our astrological charts. This is one of the many reasons why I do suggest to really, with regarding horoscopes and general predictions and forecasts, to just kind of take it with a grain of salt, because to really understand how to work with it on a personal level, you have to look to see how the specific events are connecting with your personal astrological chart. I offer my insights just as a backdrop, just as a point of reference, to inspire you what to be aware of, and to recognize the importance of empowering yourself and making the most of the energy. You know, how all of this plays out for us on a personal level, it's really dependent upon what we're projecting, which will define how specific arrangements, alignments will unfold for us on a personal level. I already started digressing a little bit, but we always trust that whatever comes through is perfect for the experience. Now, we have our full moon on February 12th, 2025. The exact time of the full moon is 8:53 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, our full moon, it's approaching the later degrees of Leo. It's 24 degrees of Leo. The sun is 24 degrees of Aquarius. Now, what is very strong with this chart is that Uranus, who is at 23 degrees of Taurus, it's forming what is referred to, or what is known as, a T-square alignment, meaning it's about 30 degrees from the moon and 30 degrees with the sun. So if you can imagine the sun and moon being opposing one another, and Uranus is right in the middle of that. That's what's known as a T-square aspect. Square aspects, they connect with Mars. So a square is a tremendous amount of energy, and a T-square is an even and more intensified amount of energy, which the square alignment always indicates a time of change. Now, if we are uncomfortable with change, then we inadvertently create the experience to be challenging and difficult. If we allow ourselves to welcome the change and embrace the change, that change always fortifies creative growth. The square aspects, even though conventionally they are referred to as an adverse aspect, every alignment, every sign, every planet, it has a lower vibration and a higher vibration, and it's dependent upon what we're projecting through our thoughts and intentions as to what we will experience on a personal level. My suggestion, one, with this full moon, just allow yourself to welcome change. With Uranus in this placement, Uranus is the element that represents the greatest amount of change and sometimes the most prolific changes that take place in our lives. If we're not comfortable with change, then we may not necessarily allow ourselves to really make the most of the experience. Remember, change fortifies creative growth. And with Uranus, many times the changes can be quite unexpected. But in the sign, with the moon being in the sign of Leo, Leo is one of the most creative signs. So when you factor in that square element with Leo, the creativity is so very much intensified and stimulated. But also, too, those are fixed signs. Leo, Aquarius, and Taurus, those are fixed signs. So generally the fixed signs, they don't like to change, especially Taurus. Taurus embraces its creature comforts. However, when we allow ourselves, once again, the availability, the comfort, the freedom, the willingness to welcome change, then on a personal level, the growth is certainly monumental and unprecedented. If you're feeling this element of change, sometimes it can be uncomfortable, because also too, especially with the sun being in the sign of Aquarius, energy levels are just completely off the charts. Those who follow the Schumann resonance, and if you're not familiar with that, I suggest exploring and researching the Schumann resonance. In simple terms, that is the vibrational frequency of the Earth. When those levels are elevated, those are actually opportunities to allow yourself to welcome higher insights and fortify and recognize how your connection with the higher self is being stimulated and energized. Many times when those vibrational frequencies begin to spike, when we're not aware of what's occurring, and even if we are aware of what's occurring, you can feel like you're jumping out of your skin. Sometimes, it just like, for example, for me personally, there's an acute elevation of the ringing in my ears. I feel a very distinct sensation in the temples and in the sides of my head, and I don't even have to look to see what those levels are when I begin having those experiences. And those of us who have an acute psychic sensitivity will feel it more so than others. Everybody's going to feel it at some level, but some will feel it a little bit more than others. And as always, with awareness and the employment of proper tools and spiritual guidance and protection, we can counteract any potential negative effects of any experience. So we may feel, especially around the time of the full moon in February, so much shifting, changing, energetically being elevated. You want to make the most of the experience. Even though here in the Northeast we're in the winter time frame, personally I find this time of year to be exhilarating being outside. For me, the cold air just... Actually, when I'm in the cold air, I feel like I come to life. I feel like I can breathe easier. I love walking out in the wintertime, especially by the ocean. I'm jumping ahead of myself, but the sun will be moving into the sign of Pisces, which is a water sign, on February 18th. So when the sun is in a specific element, we want to surround ourselves with that element, even if you're feeling uncomfortable. We don't want to, get too far out of our comfort zone. But, actually, as I'm saying that, it's really dependent upon your level of comfort in terms of getting out of your comfort zone. Because whenever we have an experience that presents an opportunity to move past our comfort zone, it's an opportunity for growth. It's also an opportunity to recognize something within yourself that you may not necessarily be aware of. And again, as sometimes I do, I am digressing, but I was speaking of the full moon and the shifts of energy and the amplification of energies that will be taking place. And with the full moon in the sign of Leo, you've heard me say this many times, every one of us has a creative potential. Creativity is not specific to art and music. Creativity is multifaceted. And by our spiritual nature, we are creative beings. So allow yourself at the full moon, because the full moon, it brings us to a place of awakening and awareness. Allow yourself to really honor and recognize your own creative potential in whatever form that might be. The element of Leo also represents love, perfect love, and Leo's ruled by the sun. Leo represents the blood. Aquarius, which is its opposite sign, represents circulation. I use that analogy to just kind of share this metaphor, to recognize how we are in that place of love. We circulate that love. And Aquarius being the sign of the humanitarian, we generate that love to the all of humanity. Remember, first and foremost, when we recognize what we are being within ourselves, especially returning to that place of love, that's what we allow ourselves, or that's what we're inspired to become, so that we can radiate that love to the all of humanity. Now, on February 18th, the sun transits into the sign of Pisces. So whatever sign the sun is transiting, whatever qualities are being presented from that sign, that's what we choose to recognize and embrace. Pisces is a water sign. As I mentioned earlier, we surround ourselves with the water element. Salt water is so very healing and grounding. Pisces also represents everything that goes on behind the scenes, that which operates beneath the surface as well as deep within ourselves. Certainly, it's an auspicious opportunity to allow yourself to really, really go deep within yourself and recognize what is working for you and what isn't working for you. It's an opportunity to become more aware of how those subtle programs and conditions that operate in the back of our mind sometimes, or rather most of the times, will define certain experiences and behaviors that we have. And if we are demonstrating something that isn't necessarily allowing us to really enjoy everything we would like to embrace, that's where we make the changes from within the self. Unless we change first and foremost from within ourselves, nothing in the outside world will change. Nothing in our sphere of experiences will change. Go within. Really allow yourself to understand the workings of your own subconscious mind. And I always talk about how the element of the mind exists in all cells of our physical form. And it's not necessarily specific to the organ of the brain. In every cell of the body, that vibrational frequency, that element of the mind is really energizing and being activated. And when we go within, really deep within ourselves, and change what is known as cellular memory, where many times trauma does exist, that's when we become even more effective at correcting any imbalances in our lives. I also emphasize the importance of spring cleaning during the winter time frame. And when the sun is in Pisces, it's an even more auspicious opportunity to really get into the corners of your home, go into those closets, clean out the dust bunnies, get rid of old clothes that you haven't worn in years, or anything else in your home that just doesn't resonate with you or is no longer useful. Deep cleaning is certainly, in my opinion, suggested during the winter time frame, more so when the sun is transiting the sign of Pisces, so that when we commence the spring time frame, we begin with a clean slate. Whenever there's a cycle experience that's about to commence, we always want to energetically prepare before we embark upon the new beginning, as to why I always suggest for spring cleaning to conduct it in the winter time frame, because it's a time to go within. It's a time to dust out the demons that sometimes exist in our home and within ourselves as well. Our next new moon will be on February 27th, and the exact time of the new moon is 7:44, almost 7:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I always like to emphasize the importance of recognizing the last phase of the lunar cycle before the new moon, which is the balsamic moon phase. The balsamic moon phase begins on February 24th at 9:05 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's the very last phase of the lunar cycle. It's the opportunity to energetically prepare for whatever seeds we are desiring to plant at the time of the new moon. Now, our new moon, again, February 27th at 7:44, almost 45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, is in the sign of Pisces. It's almost 10 degrees in Pisces, so it's in that first stage of Pisces. Actually, each sign is divided into three sectors, which are known astrologically as decans, or something to that effect. Even though I've been studying astrology since 1985, every once in a while I actually have to remind myself of certain things. But what I'm emphasizing are how, and this is again, just to share with you how vast and how complex astrology is. Each sign is divided into three sectors. And even though a sign, for example, like Pisces, is generally ruled by the planet Neptune, each one of those sectors is ruled by a different planet. For example, the first 10 degrees, 0 to 9 degrees of Pisces is ruled by Neptune. Then 10 degrees to 19 degrees of Pisces is ruled by the moon. And then the last stage of Pisces, and I'm actually forgetting what that might be, but it's another. It's I believe it is ruled by Mercury. I'm not sure about that. I got to actually double check on that, and I hope I'm not confusing you. But what I'm wanting to emphasize is how vast and complex astrology is, and how much we have to factor into when we review an astrological chart before meeting with a client. And once again, I'm digressing. However, with Pisces, Pisces is also the sign that represents spirituality as well as the psychic faculties. Every one of us has what sometimes we call the little witch inside of us. We're all connected to energy. We're all spiritual beings, which is represented by Pisces and Neptune. So we all have a psychic sensitivity. Just some are more in tuned than others, depending upon why it is that we are here. So what I would suggest is really let yourself to recognize how connected you are with everything. But also too, if anything's stirring up emotionally, it's time to really release that as well. Again, that Pisces element, it's about going deep within the self, clearing out all that emotional discord that sometimes we carry with us throughout our lives that play a part in whatever experiences we bring to form. The more alignment we are, or rather, the more in alignment we are with ourselves and our higher selves, and there's a congruency with those vibrational frequencies, then we continue becoming the master of our destiny. I've spoken about that amazing constituent of our human experience for so many, many, many years. Really recognizing how every one of us, no one left out, has the opportunity and the potential to really be the master of our destiny. And we have to also understand how to fortify that experience and work with these cycles of nature as to one of the many reasons we look to astrology. Astrology is all about cycles and is very much connected to nature and the natural world. Just look how everything in nature, especially as the seasons unfold, it's all cyclical. It's the same with astrology. And when we understand how to work with these natural elements that are very much designed to be part of our human experience, we empower ourselves. We experience much more peace and harmony. The sun being in the sign of Pisces, it's also such a great opportunity to really be very dedicated to creating peace within your own personal lives. I've also said for many years the importance of understanding how to be in the world and not of it, to just observe whatever might be going on in the outside world and do not allow any of those experiences to interfere with your wellness and well-being. There's a video on my YouTube page that it's probably 5 years ago that I created now, and it's titled "The Fear Which Interferes," which talks about all of this, and how quite often we don't recognize how much that fear element really does interfere with our joy and our happiness. I've also created part 2 to my Pluto in Aquarius series. It's going to be, or rather it should be by now, it should be available on my website as well, just to once again add another layer to all of these understandings so every one of us can really make the most of these experiences. Remember, when an astrological alignment comes together, it's really dependent on how we embrace the energy and how we direct the energy, how we employ the energy is what will define what we will experience at any given time, because none of this has the power to interfere with our free will, as spirit will also never interfere with our free will as well. Just to reiterate, we are coming up to our next eclipse season in March. Just allow yourself to honor and recognize whatever shifts are happening. Be clear with your intentions, with what you would choose to experience, and create accordingly. Also in March, I will be returning to the mystical moon in Bonita Springs. It's been about 18 months since I've been able to return. I've had an amazing opportunity to come back to Southwest Florida, and I'm so very excited to connect with everyone in person while I'm in Southwest Florida at the Mystical Moon in Bonita Springs. The center has my schedule, so if you'd like to have some time with me, contact them directly. We can look at all of this on a much more personal level and help you to recognize how you are the master of your destiny and how to make the most of any astrological phenomena that is occurring for you, as well as sharing with you whatever spirit would like to offer to continually guiding you on your journey. Once again, I'm spiritualist, psychic astrologer, and medium Ray Sette. Thank you for this opportunity, and I look so very much forward to seeing everyone very, very soon. Many blessings. Namaste.